Hi y'all, welcome back to the garden. So today I'm going to show you some new proven winners, shrubs and perennials I picked up from Cultivate and give you a little Cultivate debrief. Before we get started, Heirloom Roses is having a contest for a wish list giveaway. They're giving away like a $500 gift card if you go online and create a wish list of your favorite roses. And also you can always get 20% off your roses at 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 using my code or link in the description of any of my videos. So if you're looking for any roses, it may be too hot to plant them now. I would probably plant them, but if you want to wait a little bit, you can pick a later ship date too. So let's talk a little bit about Cultivate. You may have saw my video with Panat. Panat flew in from Connecticut to join me at Cultivate this year, and we went and met lots of interesting new plants that were released. So I'm going to show you a couple of those. First, Bailey announced the Spring Sizzle Panicle Hydrangea that I showed you a few videos ago that I was able to find at Home Depot locally. You may be able to pick that one up locally now, even though it was just announced, because I've seen other people have been able to grab it too. And they also announced this new macrophylla, reblooming macrophylla or big leaf hydrangea called Dream Cloud. We got to see this a couple weeks ago when I was at Bailey, but we weren't allowed to post about it yet. I'll put some footage on the screen of it, of the hydrangea. But in the fields at Bailey's Nurseries in Oregon, the blooms were massive. So those were getting a lot of sun. You may have seen, and I'll put some footage up here too, of Blushing Bride in my garden, which is also an endless summer variety. And it had a huge bloom on it here a few weeks ago. So I'll show you that. Lots of cool things coming from proven winners in general. There's a new improved Supertunia Bordeaux for next year, I believe. I'll put some footage on the screen. It looks like it has improved vigor and the colors are a little brighter. It's a little more white around the edges, but just overall nicer, fuller plant than what Supertunia Bordeaux seems to be. Bordeaux's always been my favorite in the garden. I use it in containers and it looks great. Great for adding a lot of drama and dark tones to your planting containers in the garden in general. Monrovia also announced a new hydrangea called Centennial Ruby for their 100 years in business. It's a really interesting hydrangea. It comes out a ruby color. It will depend on your soil pH, but if you have an alkaline soil like I do, it'll be ruby and then it will fade darker. A lot of hydrangeas will sometimes lighten up when they start to fade, but this one tends to fade darker, so it brings a lot of drama to the garden as it starts to age. From the classic Caladium series of proven winners Caladiums, there's a new one coming out. We were told that it would be a few years from now to get up numbers, but it's called Midnight Oil, and it almost looks like a very dark hosta. It's very shiny, which is opposite of sometimes what you see Caladiums, which are typically a matte color, and a very dark green to black. So that will be a very dramatic Caladium to add to arrangements as well if you're into those dark tones. Crescent Garden was there showing off a lot of their new self-watering containers. They were recently in Germany though, and I did see in a post they posted on Instagram that they are coming out with some terracotta self-watering containers, which I think will hit the US market next year. And I'm really excited about those because if you're not interested in plastic containers, terracotta containers are really nice. They were really beautiful terracotta containers. So go to their Instagram, or I'll put a link in the description. And if I can find that photo, I may just take it from their Instagram and put it on the screen here. But really stunning. It works with their Flex line, the ones I've been showing you in the garden most of the season here. So this, where the self-watering feature just kind of slides down into the container and you plant it up. So I'm really excited about those coming to the market next year, and I hope to be able to get my hands on some of those. Walter's Gardens released a lot of new varieties for proven winners and perennials this year. And I was like, I already have all these in my garden except one. So most of those perennials you've been seeing in my garden all season. I was lucky enough to get my hands on some of them in the spring, and Walter's graciously sent me some of those out in that big shipment that I showed you. But there's a new one called Treasure Trove. It is a black-eyed Susan that is supposed to be a replacement for Gold Sturm on the market. So it gets a similar size as Goldsturm, but it is very floriferous and very well branched. So it just produces a ton of blooms. I picked up 3 to bring home, and I'll show y'all in a minute. So I have never grown black-eyed Susans in my garden that I can remember. I've had Rudbeckia, so maybe that's not exactly true, but they've never been like the yellow variety that is classic with the Goldsturm variety. So I'm excited to add those. I'm probably going to tuck them. I may tuck them in the front flower bed because I still need to fill some space up there in some areas. But I also have ordered a bunch of ground covers, just typical traditional ground covers that will go over in a week or so that are arriving to cover areas of the back shrub border and also fill in spaces in the front garden bed, so I have to do less weeding going forward and less mulching going forward. So now that the sun has set a little more, let's go take a look at all the new shrubs and the perennials I picked up from Proven Winners at Cultivate. So I really wanted to bring home some of those Dream Cloud hydrangeas from Endless Summer and Bailey's that were released, but Bailey's sold their booth, so I wasn't able to grab any of those. A lot of the vendors that come to Cultivate, there are local garden centers who will purchase the plants or the products. Like Crescent Garden typically sells its booth sometimes before the show even opens to local garden centers. But mostly so these vendors don't have to take their stuff back home, and it's just easy for them to clean up because they can just leave it all and then the vendor's responsible for coming and getting it. All right, something else about Cultivate, which you've probably heard me talk about before, is these plants are brought in like several days before the trade show begins. It's very difficult to get water to them. Sometimes the companies are having to use literal ice cubes because they can't get water to their plants. So a couple of them look a little rough. The Potentillas look a little rough, but everything else looks pretty darn good. So let's take a look at some of this oak leaf hydrangea and the Potentillas first. So this is a new oak leaf by Proven Winners called Gatsby Glow Ball. It is a shorter oak leaf, which is always nice. Oak leaves are great hydrangeas to add to the garden, but they can get pretty unruly pretty quickly. So this one only gets 3 to 4 foot tall and wide, and it's hardy in zones 5 through 9. But as typical oak leaf hydrangeas, it's going to have nice fall red color, and then the bloom should transition to a burgundy as well, or a slight pink as they start to age, which is pretty common with oak leaves and a lot of other hydrangeas, including paniculatas. And here is what that foliage you can expect in the fall. I really like the nice small blooms on it so far. So the Potentillas, which has become one of my favorite shrubs in the garden, are some of the ones that took it the worst from not having good access to water. But I did water these immediately when I got home yesterday, and they look much better than they did. So this is Happy Face Hearts. I like Potentilla because they are a very driven plant in the garden. They hold up well and they bloom non-stop for you. They don't produce big showy blooms. That's about as big a blooms as you can expect from them. But once they start blooming in the spring, you're going to have blooms on them until fall. These may take a little bit of time to recover before they start producing more blooms for me. But I've got several of the Proven Winners Potentillas in the garden, and they've done really well for me. So I'm excited about this one too. For those of you who are in warmer conditions, Proven Winners is expanding their genetics for warmer regions, and this is a Buganilia. It's a variegated variety called Bambino Clarinet Red, and I'm just going to use it as a hanging basket for the rest of the season. Here it won't be hardy. You could attempt to maybe bring that in as a house plant. I'm not familiar with how those might perform as house plants, or how much success you may have from that, but it looks really promising and has beautiful variegated foliage. We have a gem box ilex, which are what I'm trying to replace my boxwoods here with in Southwest Ohio. In our county, we have both box moth and box blight, and those are very damaging and destructive to boxwoods. If you get either one of them, you can probably count the days until the boxwoods in your garden turn brown and die. So inkberry hollies tend to be a pretty good alternative. Gem box is one that's got smaller leaves that more closely resembles a boxwood. And I think maybe a pretty good alternative here. I started growing these last year. I did try them at my last garden, but I started growing some bigger ones that were sent out to me last year. My only concern with them when I started planting them was our alkaline soil, because these are hollies, but they seem to be doing pretty well here in our soil. So I'm excited about that. And if I start adding more, or want to add more boxwood to the garden, I'm going to start looking at the gem box, because they also stayed very nice and green over winter. And some boxwoods will turn that brown color, or get some brown burning on them over winter if we have a rough winter. This is also an interesting one. It's a Japanese holly called Glow Pop. Its foliage is like this nice chartreuse color, and then it can be shaped into a ball similar to a boxwood when it continues to grow on. So you see some of that darker foliage in there that's not getting quite as much sun, but all the foliage that's exposed to nice sun is very much more chartreuse. This was an interesting one I had never really considered getting, but I was recommended to pick up. It's Mr. Smooth Seedless, and it's a silver thorn. And it does get fairly large, so if you have a small property, you might be able to place one there, but 4 to 6 foot tall and wide. But it has this nice draping arching habit. And then these leaves are really cool and silver looking. See if we can get back a little bit, and you can see they look a little greener on camera, I think, than they do on person. But if you see one locally, check it out and see if you like it. I really like it. It's pretty cool looking. So I've got 2 of them. I'm going to find somewhere to stick. I'm sure they can be shaped a little bit as they grow up, but excited about this one. And then here I have 6 Let's Dance Skyview, which is a new-ish hydrangea by Proven Winners. They released last year or the year before. I'm excited about this variety. I have one up front that I planted in 2023, right after I moved in, and last month counted the number of buds and blooms on it, and there were 27 buds and blooms. So the first year, some of these in our zone may take a little bit to get going, but the second year seems to be really nice for them, and I'm really excited to see what the third year is going to bring. Skyview is supposed to be easier to turn blue than other macrophyllus in Proven Winners program. You can see that there are a little bit of blue here, but also some pink. So these are kind of hovering around a neutral pH. But I'm going to plant these in the back because I don't have any of Proven Winners macrophyllus in the back in the new flower bed that I just created, to see how they perform in a different condition than they do up front in the more eastern facing part of the property. All right, I'm going to need you to not be jealous, because when I saw this, I had to have it. This is Legend of the Small Bottlebrush, and it is a huge container. It's like a 10-gallon. It looks stunning. So Bottlebrush smells really nicely. Here's what the blooms look like in the spring. But it also, this one stays really small, 2 to 2.5 foot tall and 2 to 3 foot wide. And it turns this beautiful color in the fall. Here's this on the back. I have one of these in the garden, but they're hard to find, and I was only able to get one as a quart. And I think I planted it last year. I'm excited to get this in the garden. I may end up sticking this one up front because it's just a gorgeous specimen already. I have a lot of Serendipity alliums. One of my favorite alliums from Proven Winners. The foliage is a little more blue than other alliums in their class, and just like a brilliant performer, deer and rabbit resistant. Foliage is nice after it blooms out, but the purple seed heads, you can even see now it's covered with little bugs and pollinators there. So nobody had claimed them, so they were mine. And this is an interesting Pugster butterfly bush. I've never had this one in my garden. It's Pugster Blue. So the blooms actually look, they're really, really dark, dark purple, almost to a blue, but you can see here when they faded a little bit, these almost look blue. These were having, I think, a rough time indoors as well, but I'm going to probably trim off these older blooms here. And you can see it's producing all of these little blooms as well. So there's one there, and then there's 2 more starting there. So it's going to be covered up with buds and blooms before long. I have another Stormproof here. This is Hydrangea arborescent Stormproof, which is supposed to be an improvement of 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 from Proven Winners collection, and so it's supposed to have really strong, sturdy stems. And I've got several in the garden right now. They were sent to me as 1 gallon, so they're a little small. This is a nice 3-gallon I'm going to put at the back of the property, and we'll see how it compares to some of the others in the garden, but I think it's going to be really nice. And these are the new Black-Eyed Susans. So originally I thought these were not going to be coming till 2026. There had been some initial delays just to boost up inventory because everyone's super excited about them. But I was told they may be coming earlier than expected because Walters and Proven Winners were able to get their numbers up sooner. So here it is. It's called Treasure Trove, and roughly 32 to 36 inches tall, part to full sun. And just look at the number of buds that is on this Rudbeckia. So they told me I could cut this back before I plant it, but I still think it looks great. Some of them got a little roughed up, getting moved around so much, but this is one plant. This is not 2 plants. So this is in a tiny 1-gallon container, and I haven't watered today, so I'm going to do that after this video. I didn't want to get everything super wet before I did the video, but I'm really impressed with this variety so far, so that's exciting. And probably the number one thing I was most excited about, I don't know, I've been excited about a lot of these plants, but this is a new red aronia called Berryscape that Proven Winners is releasing. There was only one in the show. I took it home, and I'm super excited about it. I don't know when this one is coming out, probably 2026. It's going to be really hard to find initially, probably, but if you can find it and grab it, get your hands on it. I think actually Great Garden Plants may have one, so you might be able to check there. But look at how it produces its berries in little clusters. This is generically called chokeberry, and they are natives to the United States and North America. But really, really beautiful plant that is going to be really stunning. So these come out yellow to green, they'll transition to orange, and then they will turn red as we enter fall. And then all the foliage also turns red on chokeberries, and this one as well. And it's going to be a stunning fall decorative plant in the garden. And then the birds can pick off the berries as they desire for a food source. And that is it. Nice little shrub and perennial haul here that I'm going to get started planted up here soon. I want to finish connecting the drip irrigation first, so that's probably going to be a weekend project. And then I can start planting stuff in the ground so I don't have to hand water it. I'm going to turn on the irrigation for these so they can get a nice drink of water after dealing with the heat all day. And then I'm going to go enjoy the evening inside because it's still really hot and sticky out here. Thank y'all for joining me, and remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.